and welcome to this episode of Conversations on Leadership, a podcast by Academy Wales. This episode is live from Summer School 2026, and our guest for this episode is Andy Ayim, keynote speaker for Summer School 2026. Andy, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Real pleasure to be here this year. I was at winter school, so it's a pleasure to be invited back for summer school.
So before we jump into it, I think our listeners would really appreciate just a little bit of background on yourself and what you do.
Absolutely. So I'm the founder of a human-centered leadership business called Ayim Limited. And I essentially do two pieces of work. One is working with managers in large enterprise companies and running inclusive leadership training for them. So, running training for 2,000 plus managers, so quite large scale. And on the other side, I do a lot of entrepreneur-facing activity to develop entrepreneurs because my background before getting into leadership development was actually in venture capital. I work with early stage startups and investors.
So in your time here, what are you looking to get out of summer school?
Oh, that's a great question. For me, I love when I do work in different cultures and groups because I get to learn about the different problems and challenges faced in different regions, but I also get to learn about what the commonalities are that people are facing in Wales, Scotland, the UK, internationally. So I'm always very intrigued and very curious to learn what are the differences, but also what are some of the commonalities that they may not even realise themselves. And as people experience with my summer school talk, everything that I speak about is very rooted in human connection. So a lot of my stories that I share are not just professional and what I achieved and what I've done to succeed and how I received an MBE. It's actually more about the things that connect us as humanity. So it gives them some practical takeaways that they can go back to their teams to get better connected and build more trusted relationships.
You talk a lot about leading by design, not by default. I was wondering, what does that mean in practice for leaders?
When I talk about really leading by design and not default, the default is to do what I think I should be doing. So a lot of people, when they're first-time managers, first-time leaders, they're trying to actually be the leader that they think they need to be for people. But over time, once you get more confidence and you get feedback and you learn how to work with people, what you realize is that everyone has their little quirky edges, their unique strengths, and not many people ask themselves the introspective questions of, what am I great at? What are my strengths? What are my values? But once you have a core understanding of those inner workings of yourself, your inner compass, actually you can lead from a position of strength rather than lead by a position of, this is what I think I should be doing as a leader. So a great example is when I ask leaders to think about their favourite manager they've ever had in their career. And I ask them to list out, how do they make you feel? What are the things that they did? And what lasting impact did they have on you? 10 out of 10 times, no one ever mentions the tenure of the person, their technical abilities, how good they are at strategic planning or budgeting financially. It's always the soft skills. They were a great storyteller. They were inspiring. They supported me. They were in my corner. They stretched me in the right ways. So you notice that actually these human skills are at the core of what people really remember their favorite leaders. That is the legacy of a leader. So that's why we need to operate from a place of design and intentionality rather than a default of what I think the world wants me to be as a leader. So that's a lot of the work that I do with managers today.
Do you find it difficult to break down that, you say leading as you're expecting to? I've had it myself, people who have been in charge, they think this is how you act when you're in charge. It's very ingrained, this is what a leader is. Is that difficult to break down? It
can be, especially with some of the organisations I work with where leaders have been in the organisation for 40 plus years. There's an established way of doing things. But the problem is that business change is often outstripped by the advancement of technology and the speed at which it advances. So the world has changed so much even in the last decade that we've had 5 different prime ministers here in the UK. We've had, COVID and Brexit. We've had different geopolitical wars. So the world is changing and advancing so much. We've had the rapid advancement of AI. We have about 5 different generations in the workplace. So actually, if I use the same rule book that got me into leadership 40 years ago, then I'm actually closed-minded and not growth-minded, and I'm not evolving and changing with the market as the world is changing. So I actually risk getting left behind rather than being able to lead people from different generations, which is what I should be doing as a leader.
Since I've been doing these, there's a term that's slowly been coming up more and more, the psychological safety. But what does it look like in a team when it's done well? And what do leaders most often get wrong?
When it's done well, let's just break down this word. Psychological safety is a feeling. And the reason that I need to define that is because how you feel impacts how you perform. If I feel like the manager that I'm reporting into doesn't see me, doesn't support me, doesn't actually inspire me, doesn't help provide clear career progression for me, I'm going to be disenchanted. I'm going to do the bare minimum when I come to work, and I'm probably going to be looking for jobs while I'm at work. If I feel like that person really values me, really supports me, stretches me, is interested in me and my career journey, I'm going to go the extra mile for that person. The difference in those two scenarios isn't my skill or my capability. The difference in how I felt. So psychological safety is a feeling because it's that feeling of being seen, heard, valued, and supported. And the problem isn't that good leaders don't have good intentions. The problem is that they struggle to do it consistently, especially when there's business pressures.
So this year's summer school is centred on reflect, reconnect, reimagine, and recommit. Which of those do you think is the most prescient for leaders right now?
For me, I feel like reflect and reconnect are really intertwined because in order to establish a culture of continuous learning, I must continuously reflect in order to reconnect the dots, in order to learn from those experiences. If not, the absence of that reflection, I might mistake a connection for an error or a failure or a misstep. And I may fail to extract the lessons from that experience. But during that journey of reflection and introspection, what I can then do is look back and connect the dots and understand how what I've been through has impacted the result that it ended in. So a good example of that is that, I could fail as a student on an exam. And I could feel like the world is over, especially at 16 years old. But if the right person helps me to really reflect from a different vantage point, I can extract a lot of lessons. Like I've learned how to learn, I've got all of the knowledge, I feel more confident now I know the things that I got wrong, and I feel like I'm even more intelligent and capable of doing that exam again the next time round. But that's just a matter of perspective. And that's the power of reflecting and reconnecting. The other level of reconnection that's important is that we live in a hyper-individualistic world. It means that we have to make even more intentional effort to feel connected as humanity. And a lot of people go to work actually for community because we spend more time at work than sometimes we do at home. So when I go to work, I want to feel like I belong and I can be my best self and I can be all of who I am. If I feel like I'm going to work as a restricted version of myself, you're also going to get restricted results from me. So during this time of AI, there's also a risk of alienation. But this is the time that we need to lean in and reconnect and redefine what it means to be in person again. Because we're in a hybrid world where people are questioning, why am I coming into the office to spend the whole day on MS Teams or on Zoom or on virtual calls? No, when I'm in the office, I want to really feel connected to people. I want to learn. I want to grow. I want there to be new purpose when in the office. And leaders have a role in really defining what that means in this hybrid world.
So if we look at that changing workplace then, there is certainly more focus on well-being and making the workplace a little bit more humane. But obviously leaders still want high performance. How do you get leaders to understand that those two things don't need to conflict?
Yeah, it's exactly the example that I shared before, that how you feel impacts how you perform. So in order to unlock high performance, I actually need to set the conditions so that people feel safe, feel seen, feel heard, and feel supported so they can have the platform to do their best work. In the absence of that, if people feel like they're unseen, unsupported, feel like there's not clarity in the future of their roles here because of AI, they're going to be doing the bare minimum and looking for jobs. It happens in all organizations when people feel isolated or disconnected. The problem with the focus on well-being right now is at a policy level, but actually the challenge that we're talking about is at a systemic level. So it means that we need to start with the individual internal to understand what's going on with each person before we can sort out what's happening collectively as a system. So leaders need to get better at just dialing back into how do I connect with this person at a personal level. And often it means that leader needs to go first and be the vulnerable one. Yeah. Because what you notice is when they do that, it increases the surface area of connection. Because that person now feels like they have permission to share more of who they are. And you notice it in moments where, I've had a bad night because my 2-year-old's been up all night and I haven't managed to sleep. Now they feel comfortable having that conversation with you. Rather than them not having that conversation, being in a meeting and they're looking tired and you're thinking they're disconnected, disrespectful and not engaged in the work. But they just feel like they couldn't have that conversation with you because the relationship isn't there. That's the difference between performance.
If you could leave the Summer School delegates this week with one challenge or one practicable action to take back to their workplace, what would it be?
For me, I really want them to be accountable for taking action on what they experienced at summer school. So I would encourage them within 3 days of summer school to speak to their team about what they experienced and the commitments that they've made. Within 3 weeks of summer school, they should update their team on how things are going and what they're finding challenging. And within 3 months of summer school, they should have an honest discussion with their team around what's worked well, what hasn't worked so well, and what they're going to do next because of that. And that's a great example. We call it the 3-3-3 method for following on and creating accountability on what you commit to. And that's how you shift behavior, by having simple frameworks like that and following through on doing what you said you're going to do with your team aware of what you committed to.
Andy, thank you for this. It's been really enjoyable. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I'm really looking forward to tomorrow.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it too.
Mae un podlediad sgwrsiau ar arweinyddiaeth ar gael trwy ein gwefan. Mae'r hawlfraint y podlediad yma yn cael ei gadw gan Llywodraeth Cymru. Our Conversations on Leadership podcast is available through our website. Copyright of this podcast is held by the Welsh Government.